there was a cave that was on there also that had some carvings in it.
Mm-hmm.
It had double J's backwards, and it's what Jesse James.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so back in the 1800s.
So it was like one J, but it had both
turned backwards.
Yeah.
One loop
mirrored
left,
Yep.
one loop right. Yeah.
Yep.
And so they had found some old muskets and some old guns and gold and silver pieces in that cave or whatever. And so they claimed that that was one of his hideouts. Jesse and Frank James' hideout.
Hi, my name is Derek Hines. I'm the managing partner here at Gaddis Premier Wealth Advisors. Welcome to our podcast. Today, I've got a good friend of mine on the podcast, Brent Lyday with Legacy Land Group. Brent, thanks for joining us.
Man, thank you so much. I've really looked forward whenever we spoke about doing this. I've really been excited to do this. I'm a little bit nervous. It's my maiden voyage. It's my first one, but I'm excited. Thank you.
We'll have to get like a sticker or a pin for all the people that we have on the podcast. It's like their first time.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. No, I'm excited.
It's our claim to fame.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, it's good having you. So tell me a little bit about just kind of what you do. We'll do professional first, and then we'll kind of get into some hobbies.
Okay. So I am a land broker, primarily do land. My wife and I own Legacy Land and Realty and Legacy Land Group.
Yep.
We have 7 agents total, counting my wife and I. So we have 5 other agents, and we've got a great team. And primarily, I've got some agents that just do primarily land, and then some agents that kind of lean more toward the residential stuff.
Yeah.
And but it's we have a family land that we raise cattle and things on for business, and so it's been a good trip. So
yeah. So how do you find agents?
I do not recruit agents. I normally I just try to be myself and be who I am. There's people come up talking to me about getting their license and things like that all the time. And so I, tell them if they ever are interested, come talk to me. And I've only had, as of right now, we've only had one agent that's ever had their license prior to come to us. So that's been a little bit of a challenge for us because all the agents that we've had have been brand new.
Yeah.
So we've had to train them and, try to get them started and things like that. I don't know that I would recommend that avenue because it is challenging, but we have some great people.
Yeah. Do you find it challenging training individuals?
Yes. Yeah, at times, I mean, you have to set apart time to put in and to train them. And Michelle and I, my wife and I have been, really busy, super blessed to be busy.
Yeah.
And, with business, our family life, and taking care of the ranch and different things, it's, that's just an added thing that we've kind of put on our plate to, which we've been really blessed with the agents that we've got. We don't necessarily want to just take everybody that comes to us.
Sure.
Because we want to be able, we want to have a certain, look and have a certain culture in our business, and so we don't want to necessarily just take anybody that wants to come to us either. We want to be a little bit picky. So
yeah. So what's the hardest thing, or what's the most difficult thing you found to train on? Honestly, it's finding time to put in enough time, because I feel obligated to if they're going to come on with us, I feel obligated that we need to spend the time and the effort, and I need to be present with them when they're there, so that I'm not wasting their time either. Yeah. And so I think that's been the most difficult part for us. Like I said, we've had some, all of our agents that come to us have been really, they want to learn, they want to figure it out. And so it makes my job easier to teach them
the ropes and what they need to do. But once they get started and once they start going and kind of get a little bit of a taste of it, kind of what's, it's much easier. There's just trying to get everything started is the biggest.
Yeah. Is there any certain skill or skill set that is harder to teach? Like, what are the things that they need help with the most? Is it paperwork, talking to, people that are looking to buy or sell, or?
So, going through real estate school, they don't teach you how to sell real estate at all. Yeah. They teach you laws. They teach you what
you how to pass a test, right?
You have to pass a test. Yeah. What you can and can't do. Yeah. And so coming in, we have to teach them how to market themselves, how to learn all their contracts, and you have a different contracts for land versus commercial versus residential. And so just being able to teach them all, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. How to associate with people, what you can say, what you can't say. Now that you have a license, there's certain things, we have a fiduciary role to take care of those clients. And so that's a little bit of depends on their background, but that takes a little bit of time to figure out what they can and can't say even. Yeah.
What are some examples? Well, what are things they can't say? Because this is big in our industry too, right? So there's certain things I can't use certain words because it communicates something. We have a fiduciary responsibility as well, and a lot of people don't understand what that entails, like what that means.
So on a listing, say a listing, Joe Smith has land out here, and he tells me that we want to list it for $1 million. But he tells me also that he would actually take probably $700,000 for that property. Yeah. Well, I can't go tell a potential buyer or even another agent that's what he told me. I have a fiduciary role to protect him, to get him the most amount of money that he can possibly get for that property. Regardless of what he'll take for it, it's my job. If we're going to list it at $1 million, it's my job to find a buyer that will pay
$1 million.
$1 million.
Yeah. Interesting. So is that why it's always good to have representation on both sides, or what happens in the situation that one agent is representing both parties?
We do that all the time. Now, we do have several clients that come to us, and a lot of states, they require you, from what I understand, they require you to have separate agents. And so in Oklahoma, we can have both sides of the property, or both sides of the listing and the selling. And so, but we have a fiduciary role, and we have to make sure we keep everything split up, and we have to be real careful what we say, what we do, what we share, to both sides. We have to protect the buyer as much as we do the seller. Yes. A lot of people aren't real comfortable with that. Some of it has been because they've had a bad experience with other companies or whatever, or people. And so, but that's something that we do pride ourselves on. I guess you could say that we're going to do it. It doesn't matter what the cost is, and sometimes it costs. I mean, it would be easier to tell everybody what, but we're not going to. We are not going to.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's important. You mentioned culture. You're kind of, do you want to maintain the culture of what you're building, the agents you're bringing on? What are some of the things you're looking for from a cultural perspective?
Integrity is the biggest thing that I look for. I want somebody that, if they're going to be on our team, if they tell you they're going to do something, they're going to do everything that they can to get that done. If it takes money out of their pocket, I expect them, just as I would myself, to do the right thing, even if it takes money out of your pocket. And I know that's hard for some people, but that's something that I just expect. I'm going to do what's best for our clients, and that's the way I'm going to present myself and do it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's good.
But I think integrity is the number one thing that we need.
Yeah. What's been so? Can you think of a situation where, not that your integrity was brought into in question, but that there was an opportunity to make more money or not take the hit, but
that's a good question.
You stood on integrity.
That comes up all the time because we do work with both sides, and so a lot. And so I would say probably half, or maybe even, I would say probably maybe 60 to 70% of our business, we're working on both sides.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that I can think of anything right now because it happens a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still dealing with what people are telling us nearly every transaction, and so.
Yeah. What's been one of the most unique or unusual transactions you've either been approached with or completed?
So I'm
sure you get some pretty crazy things thrown at you.
Yeah. I've had some really neat places that I've listed or that I've gotten to show. One of the coolest places I think that I've gone to was Gene Autry's old home place, which is in Gene Autry outside of Ardmore there a little ways, but it had if you watch some of his shows, at the end of the show, it's got the long white rock barn, and it's got the post out there, and they tie the horses. So I got to show that place. It was 465, 475 acres. It's been several years ago now, but it was for sale. And just being able to, the barn was dilapidated for the most part now, but some of the posts outside where they tied the horses, it still had the horses' names on them and the rings hanging on them where they tied the horses up. And there was another place that in Bromide, I think it was back in the late 1800s. There used to be, the Chickasaws used to have a large girls' home there, and it was 3 stories tall with big rock building. And they housed like 400 Indian girls. And they would bring them in, and they would teach them pottery, teach them how to cook, teach them how to sew, teach them how to dry, tan hides and things like that on this place. And the corners of the building was still there, but there was 2 sisters out of Tulsa that owned it. But there was a cave that was on there also that had some carvings in it. It had double J's backwards, and it's what Jesse James. And so back in the 1800s.
So it was like one J, but it had both
turned backwards. One loop
mirrored
left, one loop right. And so they had found some old muskets and some old guns and gold and silver pieces in that cave or whatever. And so they claimed that was one of his
hideouts,
Jesse and Frank James hideouts. So,
and, where's Bromide from here?
So Bromide is 35 miles probably straight north of Durant. It's just north of Coleman or Wapanucka. It's right outside of kind of northwest of Wapanucca there a little ways. Probably 10 miles.
So go to Wapanucca and go back west.
Yes.
Yeah, that's neat. And so do you know much about Jesse James? And
I don't know a whole lot. My dad could tell you. Supposedly, I mean, and I know maybe a lot of people say this, we're related from way back. The youngers, I think I had maybe a great aunt or great aunt that was a younger or something like that, but it's pretty good ways back. But their mother was a younger, from what I understand. And so anyway,
interesting. Well, where was their main hideout at?
I couldn't tell.
Wasn't it?
I don't know a whole lot of details of where that was at.
I thought it was somewhere
I thought it was somewhere around here, but
yeah. I couldn't tell you where that would be.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So what got you into the real estate business?
So before I was a realtor, I trained horses for a living. And so I had, back in 2000, and it might have been 1999, I worked for a gentleman down in Pilot Point, Texas. His name was Rick Risacci. He's a rope horse trainer. One of the owners that we trained horses for, he had some really, really nice horses. He was one of the, from what I understand, and I haven't done a lot of research on this, but he was one of the 8 or 9 guys that started Century 21 years and years ago. And so he would come in. He lived in Scottsdale, Arizona primarily. He had a place in Jackson, Wyoming, and different places. But he would come in and ride with us. He would stay several weeks with us, and we'd talk about stuff. I'd go with him, and he was always kind of talking about real estate stuff. And so that was the first seed that was planted in my, planted about real estate. Never really thought about it because all I ever wanted to be was a cowboy growing up, horse trainer, thought I was going to get rich training horses, and that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so
so the quickest way to make $1 million in the horse business, right? Or become a millionaire. The quickest way to become a millionaire in the horse business.
Start out with $2 million. Right. So that was the first seed that was planted. So skip forward several years. I worked for some other trainers, in the meantime. I actually went out on my own, and a friend of mine, which I think you know him, Jimmy Ward.
Yeah.
So Jimmy and I were roping, helping move some cattle down on Blue River, and I roped a cow we roped the cow and drug her in the trailer. Well, I had to jump off the horse to get the gate shut.
Yeah.
And one of the back gates was hung on a 2x4. So I stuck my foot in the side of the trailer to try to push it. Well, I popped a disc out.
Yeah.
So I went along there probably 6 months, 7 months. I got where I couldn't even hardly walk. And then meantime, I had, I averaged 10, 12, 13 head of horses that I was trying to ride daily.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. I had a lady that was working for me at the time, and I started dragging my right leg. I couldn't hardly get around. So Michelle, my wife, she has an aunt that's in real estate down in Florida, south of Orlando there, and she told me, she's like, Brent, we had a great relationship. She says, Brent, you really should try to figure out how to work smarter and not harder. She said, tons of people that, have land and trainers and things like that. She said, what about getting your real estate license? And so I ended up having back surgery at the end of 2007. And my son, Brendan, he's my oldest. He was roughly 6 months old. It got to be a scary time for me.
Yeah.
Because Michelle, she was working, but me being what I felt like I needed to be the provider, and I was at a point in my life where I could not provide. I couldn't do anything. Yeah. So I got to thinking more about the real estate stuff, and so you know what? While I'm down, can't ride horses, I'm going to start studying to get my real estate license, and I can do both, maybe try to, ride some horses and do real estate on the side kind of deal. And so I ended up getting my license in 2009, right after kind of partially in the middle of the, real estate crisis. And I had no idea I I hadn't even bought my own piece of property at this point in my life. So I was green. But I've always been the type of person who's like, you know what, I'm going to give it a try and I'm going to do the best I can and see what happens. And so I got my real estate license 2009. Michelle was working in Ardmore. We were living in Coleman at the time.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good little drive.
Yeah, she was.
Coleman.
Yeah, so she was driving to Ardmore, working for a doctor over there, and I got my license in 2009, and it just kind of started going. My 2010, I got where I couldn't ride very many horses because I was really busy with the real estate stuff.
Yeah.
And so she was doing a lot of stuff for me. We were working on a lot of broker price opinions. I told her, I said, I really would love for you to get your real estate license. And so 2011, she ended up getting her real estate license 2 years after I did. And we've been going full board ever since. She quit her job over in Ardmore, and the ride's been up and down, but it's been a huge blessing to me and my family. So
I didn't realize that you've been a real estate agent that long.
Yeah.
In 2009.
Yep. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Meet a lot of interesting people.
Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, that's a good story. I don't know, it sounds like it was a tough time in your life. Transition.
And I tell you what, it was. I didn't grow up necessarily in a church family. My mom and dad didn't go to church. My grandmother did, and when we would go visit with her, she would, every summer and she lived here in Durant.
Yeah.
She would take us to church, or we'd try to find her vacation Bible school or something to go to. And, but Michelle and I, when we got married, we're like, if we're going to do this, and I was kind of a wild child, for a little while. After I moved out and stuff, I was drinking and going and doing stuff that I shouldn't have been doing. And I was showing rope horses, and we were going to shows. We would leave out on Thursday and come back Sunday night. And then so we were running with guys all the time. And so when Michelle and I started dating, we're like, all right, so if we're going to get serious about this, we need to start trying to find a church.
Yeah.
So we did, and I was, at that time, we'd got married. We moved to Marietta, and we was working for some folks over there, Bill and Michelle Cowan over there, and riding reiners and cow horses, and they were primarily cow horses and cutters.
Yeah.
And so I started all their colts for them at the time, and doing all the repro work for them. And we found a little church over there, and we started going, and I just started kind of getting into helping with the youth. I love kids.
Yeah.
And just kind of helped with the youth a little bit there. And I had an opportunity to move to Coleman, to kind of start my own deal, and so I accepted it, and we moved to Coleman, and we had some family that lived there, and so we started going to church up there. And it wasn't real long, Michelle and I took over the youth. There wasn't a youth group there at Coleman at the time in that church. And so we went from, there was a couple of kids that went to church there. Their mom and dad went to church there, and I think there was maybe 3, sometimes 4. And we grew that youth group to about roughly 30 kids or so, and we'd taken Falls Creek, and so kind of got going that direction, but it was a rough time in my life whenever that, and I can remember we were struggling. We couldn't make bills. I wasn't working.
Yeah. And
so there was bills still coming in. And I can remember one specific time, when I may tear up talking about it, but we owed like, it wasn't a big bill. It was like $230-$240 on something. And there was a lady that come to that was in our church. She was a family member actually, and she come to us. I think it was like $248 from what I remember. And she said she come to us, and she come to the house. We were gone, and there was an envelope on the door, and there was a check in there, and Michelle and I racking our brains like, how are we going to pay this? You know, of course, $250 at the time for us was a lot of money still. You know, and or $248, and there was a check in there for $250.
Yeah,
and I figured out who had done it.
Yeah.
And I asked her, I thanked her and everything. She said, I was just driving home from Dren. I've been at the grocery store. I was driving home, and I said, you know what? I think God's telling me to drop that check off to them. And it was exactly what we needed, you know. And so it was, we had to lean on Christ. We didn't have anything else to lean on. You know. So,
yeah. That's a good story.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting how, I mean, God didn't necessarily cause those things to happen, but how he can work good even through those situations.
Yeah. And I for sure. And I know he doesn't cause those things to happen, but, man, it's, if you're just halfway looking, he's going to be there to help you through those situations. Yeah. You know? So,
yeah. I'm kind of smiling and laughing. I told you, you know, when I dropped those horses off the other day, I told you a horse story, and Jimmy Ward was definitely part of that story. And I've never met Jimmy.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever met Jimmy in person.
Mm-hmm.
But his brother Earl and I worked together at the co-op in Perry.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I think we probably we didn't work together for that long.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's funny how you run into people from the past.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm trying to remember, because when you asked me this, I was trying to remember where exactly you and I met. I know we had, because I had talked to Earl, and you know, we had mutual friends, but I'm trying to remember exactly when we met.
I don't think we met until going to church here.
Going to church at Victory, right?
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking. I think that's it. You know, we had that life group,
right?
Were you were in Pastor Lee's life group, but he had that business life group,
right?
And I think that's where we finally met.
Yeah, I think so too. That life group changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, the people that I met in there, and for me to watch what you've done, what Jeremiah, what Kevin Keener, what Eric Huffman and Drew Jackson and Willie Henderson and those guys, I just stand back because I felt out of place in that life group. I really did.
I think we all did.
And, but I was so honored to even be asked to be in there or whatever, and to join it, and to get to know get to know you guys, and to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, it was a good life group. And I remember when it started, I felt pretty out of place too. It's like, what am I doing here? But I remember you talking in that life group. That was probably 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's, you first had the dream of the land group that you started. You want to call it Legacy, and you were thinking about and it was all amicable, but the leaving the broker you were with and starting your own land group.
Yeah, that's probably been 6 years ago, because I've been out on my own 5 years now.
Okay. Yeah, so, that's a long time ago.
6 or 7 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's funny. Yeah. So I just thought of, we said Jimmy Ward. I was like, man, I'm gonna have to meet this guy. Cause from what little I know about him, he's got quite the character.
Oh, he does.
Yeah. Or he is quite the character.
He's a great guy. Yeah. Love him to death. He was just over at the house the other day. So. Yeah,
that's awesome. So after transitioning to real estate, how have you, because your thought was to do both, right? You could do real estate, ride some horses, but then you got kind of busy with real estate. So how have you, I know your family's, really involved in rodeo and
yes, sir,
ranching and horses. So how have you maintained that while still doing real estate?
Well, so I don't train for the public anymore. My son, Brendan, actually has kind of taken over that role a little bit.
Yeah.
And so he aspires to be a cowboy. And so I'm the driver now going to rodeos, I try to balance. I definitely want to be home for my kids, to be able to, I want to be present for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that's one reason that kind of led me to make the decision to get into real estate as well. Because I do have some flexibility of my time and what I can do.
Yeah.
And so I love being with my kids.
Yeah.
My kids, my girls are getting out today out of school for the summer, and so I'm ecstatic. Michelle and I both, we love to have our kids around, and so I try every chance. And the only avenue that I really knew, that I didn't play a whole lot of sports. I played baseball some and basketball, but I've always been the small guy, the little guy that wasn't very good, kind of deal. And so rodeo is what I knew, or riding, training horses, ranching and things. And so they all three grew up on horseback with me, and since they were little bitty, I remember I've got pictures of Brendan whenever I was training still in Coleman. I had some bigger Holstein Jersey cross calves, and I would rope them, and they get, after a little while, they get pretty gentle. And so I'd put his little saddle on one of those calves, and he had a little pony, but I'd put his saddle on one of those calves. And of course, they're herd animals. They're going to follow each other around. So I would just turn him loose in the arena, and he would go and rope off of another calf. He would rope off the calf and rope the other calves while, and so he was like 4 years old when he roped his first cow or, animal.
Off another cow.
Off of another cow and off of his pony, Coco. And so I've got pictures of that, and so.
That's funny.
So I want to come home and spend time with my kids.
Yeah.
And, but I don't ride outside of horses anymore. So real estate has allowed me to be able to do that and to spend time with my kids and so their family.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your kids. So what are their names and ages?
Okay. So I got, my oldest is Brendan. He is 17. He's about to be 18 in July. So, and then, he's still in high school. He'll be a senior next year. I've got two girls. My oldest is Brinley. She's 13 right now, and she's a spitting image of me. Her attitude, or her personality is a lot like mine. She's 13. She'll be in 9th grade. She'll be a freshman this next year. McKinley is 9. And so it's funny because Brendan, growing up, he's all about cows and ranching and things like that. Brinley likes that stuff, but she's good to kind of get dolled up and kind of, be a girl too. But McKinley, she loves to play, like when she was little, she loves to play with cows and stuff.
Yeah.
But then she would be doing it in a skirt, so she's a balance between the two of them. It's really funny that
to watch them grow up, because they're all different, you know, but yeah, I just, it's been a fun ride having kids. I wish I wouldn't have waited so long. We didn't wait super late, but I wish I would have done it sooner.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. How old were you when you had Brendan?
We were 26.
Okay.
You know, we were married for 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, and so I was trying to get, you know, a business started, and I didn't feel like I was ready to have kids, and I felt like I didn't have the money. You know, we were broke back then.
You never have the money.
How in the world are we going to afford this kind of deal?
You never have the money. You're never ready.
Yeah. It's funny because that's kind of what took me so long, really, to ask Michelle to marry me. I knew for a long time that this is the girl that I wanted to be with and that I wanted to marry. And I was talking to a veterinarian when I lived down in Pilot Point, Dr. McCarroll down there. He's like, Brent, he said, have you asked that girl to marry you yet? I said, no, man, I haven't. I said, I don't feel like I can afford to do it, because I was working for a rope horse trainer. It's not like I was a rope horse trainer at the time. I was working for somebody else, making
sloping horses around,
little money. Yeah. And he's like, I'm going to tell you something. He said, if you wait till you feel like you're going to, or that you're ready, or that you're financially ready to get married, you'll never get married. Yeah. He said, if you love her, you need to go marry her. Yeah. And it probably wasn't a month later, you know. Yeah. I asked her to marry me. Yeah. I got to thinking about that. It's like, it's time. I need to do it.
Yeah. How'd you guys meet?
So we met through college. She and I both went to, so she's from Florida. Well, she kind of moved around, but she was born in Florida. She moved out to Oklahoma for a little while. Then family things happening. She actually graduated high school in Utah.
You tell me that.
Yeah. And so she wanted to be a vet technician. And so I went to Murray State College there in Tishomingo, and I think it was my second year. I met her. We were just friends. We'd never dated or anything like that through college. Earl Ward and was going to school over there also, and so we've known each other for a couple of years. After she got out of vet tech school, she ended up going to Kentucky and working for a vet, equine associates up there for a vet. Yeah. And so she was up there for several months, I guess. Wasn't really what she was wanting to do in Kentucky. So she ended up moving back to Sherman and was working for a vet in McKinney. And at that time, after I got out of Murray and Tishomingo, I ended up going to two-year college in Gainesville, North Central Texas, and went through their equine science program. So when I was doing that, I ended up getting a job over in Salina, Texas, riding reining horses, or I was riding all their colts and doing their repro work. I went to Colorado State University to went through some of their repro stuff there, schooling, and so I was living in Salina. Earl calls me one night, said, "Hey, what are you doing?" So he come down and was visiting. He's like, "Man, we need to go see Michelle Schroyer." It's like, who? And I hadn't, this is 2 years later, maybe. Yeah. He's like, Michelle, we went to school with her. And I was like, all right. So we went to Sherman where she was at, and we all just kind of hung out and watched movies. And from that night on, we just started dating. And, we were together 3 years before I asked her to marry me. And so the rest is history. Yeah. She's been, I can't express how much that she means to me and how much she's changed my life. Yeah. In the trajectory of where I was going and she's been such a blessing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've got a great family.
I do. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
So any big plans for the summer?
No, we don't have a whole lot of plans. Well, we're going to go to Alabama. We'll probably go to the beach and stuff down there. Michelle, we got to take.
You like the beach? It's too much sand
for a short period of time.
Yeah.
I don't mind going and hanging out a couple of days or something, but I'm not.
It looks the same every day you go back.
Right.
It's like you get to the beach and it's like, well, it's what it was yesterday.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, I would much rather go do something else, but the kids love it. Michelle loves the beach, and so
my wife likes the beach too. Yeah. So I like seeing new country.
Yeah.
So whether it's mountains or really anything, I just kind of like seeing something new.
Yeah, and it's Michelle's that way also, or I am too. But we love. She loves Tennessee. She loves mountains, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. We both do, and I've been Arizona and kind of I love that landscape out there, and Colorado and so I like a little bit of all, I like to go snow skiing, I love snow skiing, and so but yeah.
Yeah. So what's the favorite place you've been? What's the best place you've been?
That's a good question. Landscape wise, I really like the Southwest, like Arizona, the way it looks. One of the coolest places that I've gone to that I feel like, and you and I've talked a little bit about it before, but last year I was got the opportunity to go to Colorado and ride, and we rode 100 miles across the Continental Divide. We rode horseback through, primarily 2 ranches and part of National Forest. But there was 150 guys, or roughly 150 guys that went on this ride. And we went from Walden, Colorado up into Encampment, Wyoming area.
Yeah.
And so that was some gorgeous landscape. Beautiful. I'm not a big trail rider, but to be able to go ride in God's creation like that is a little bit different than just going and riding around.
Yeah. Anything unexpected happen?
No. Some of the group. It's funny. The first morning, so we leave here. It's in July. And it's 100 degrees here.
Yeah.
We leave and get up there. That first morning we woke up, it's like 35 degrees.
Yeah.
And there was so many so many people got bucked off that first morning just because the horses were fresh and they felt good. And it was pretty comical that first morning.
Yeah. We, that's where, so Evan worked in Walden for a little while.
Okay.
Up in I forget the name of the ranch, but we were in New Mexico and we went to see him for Easter, which was April. Okay. And so, in New Mexico, it's getting nice. It's spring weather. It's, 70, 80 during the day. Right. So getting kind of cold at night.
Yeah.
And it snowed on us every day when we were up there for Easter.
Right.
And it was disgusting.
Right.
The weather was horrible.
Yeah.
And it was cold. And Walden, and correct me if I'm wrong, I might be thinking about the wrong place, but Walden's right outside of Steamboat Springs.
This is in the north. Walden's north.
Yeah, it's so I think Steamboat Springs, and there's a big mountain pass. And
yeah. You're right. Yeah.
I think it's is that South Park, or what's the name of that valley?
Maybe that sounds right.
Yeah. It's really high in elevation.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was neat. We just different landscape. We're supposed to go back this year to Tulia. Right.
Where's that at?
It's kind of southwest.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be really, really, really pretty over there. So
yeah.
But I don't think I'm going to make the ride this year.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things, like once you get invited though, you can keep going, or is
you can.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, you can. So, and it's, going the first year, it's a process to be able to go. You have to be invited to go. And you have to go through some training and stuff. That's
after we went to New Mexico last year as well, and I had to go from New Mexico to deal with my son, then I had to go into Denver to do some training or whatever to be able to even go, or they wouldn't,
Yeah. What kind of training?
Basically you had to go ride and show them that you can climb mountains and you can cross streams and you can basically show horsemanship.
Yeah.
Cause it's, some of the terrain that we were going on was really steep.
Yeah.
We crossed the North Platte River 3 or 4 different times.
Yeah.
And just making sure you can handle, going straight up a hill or down a hill and not fall on your head.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody fall on their head on the trip?
Oh yeah. And there was some people that did, but some of that was alcohol related, but but yes, there were some guys that would that had some issues while we were there.
Yeah.
It was a crazy story. There was a Dr. Beeman. He's 90. I think he's right around 90 years old, maybe plus or minus a couple years. He's been on this ride every year since it started in 1975, I think. Well, this last year was 75th anniversary.
Okay.
And so he'd made every ride. He's a fox hunter, and and so he rides all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a gentleman, I guess this has been several years, but he carries this Dr. Beeman carries a big rope, like a riata, like a 60-foot rope.
Wow. So like an actual braided leather.
And it was a guy from Argentina had given it to me. And so a buddy of mine, Casey Mock, he asked him, says, "Doc, why?" Because he's not a roper, he's not a cowboy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if he could use it.
Yeah. And he said, "Why do you carry that rope for?" And he said, "Well, there was a few years back," he said, "we was on this ride." And he said, "See that mountain over there?" It's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "We were crossing that mountain, and there was a gentleman on the ride. His horse just took off." And he said, "This guy hit a limb and it just killed him." And he said, "So we're several miles up into these mountains and things." And he said, "So we were sitting there, we laid him on the ground. We tried to, try to help him, and he died, right there on the ride." And he said, "We didn't think about it, but rigor mortis started setting in, and he was stiff as a board. He was straight." And he said, "We didn't think about throwing him over a log or something like that so that we had to pack him out of there. And he's straight, this guy, we couldn't, and we called the, medical, well, there wasn't any, I don't think there was any phone service up there at all."
Yeah.
And so we had to pack him out. And so we didn't have any ropes to do it with. I mean, we wasn't prepared. And so he said, "Next time what I'm going to do is throw the guy over a log and let him, and then that way we can throw, if it happens again, we can put him over the horse, and I'll have my rope to tie him onto the horse." But he said, I'm not going to come on this ride again without a rope."
Oh my God.
That's the reason why that he carries a rope, is because, the guy, I think, probably had a heart attack or something, and his horse started, he hit a limb and killed him. But
my gosh.
Yeah, they said it was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy trip.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that beats any story I've got. We spent a lot of time in the mountains on horseback.
Yeah.
And I mean, just, it never fails. Something happens.
Right. Yeah. I was, we had 6 mules that we packed a lot of stuff in, and they were telling me stories. Nothing happened this trip, but they were telling me, part of the mules, they would slide down a big, rock slide, and you might lose part of the mules, and then you have to go gather them back up. And so it it gets a little hairy. I mean, there's times, there was a couple of those places that, I mean, we wouldn't be on, 2 foot, 3 foot ledges, and you look down, 600-800 feet.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And rock, slate rock,
Yeah. Yeah. We had that happen to us one year. We borrowed this mule from a friend, and wasn't shod, nothing. He said, "Oh, he'll be all right." So we borrowed this mule, and I was ponying him, and we're just kind of walking down the trail, and we were just south of the Rio Grande Reservoir, outside of Creed, Colorado. And yeah, it's a good couple hundred feet, and just slick shale rock, and I'm just kind of going along, not really thinking about a whole lot. The trail's no wider than this, and all of a sudden I feel a jerk, and that mule had gotten an aspen tree, a little juvenile aspen tree, stuck in between the pack saddle and him.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know it's there yet.
Right.
Right. So this aspen tree is starting to come down, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is about to be a rodeo.
This is not going to be good.
And so, I'm trying to get the rope off of my saddle horn as fast as I can. And finally that aspen tree comes down, and that mule sees it.
Yeah.
And he takes off and hits the back of my horse, which causes a chain reaction.
Yeah.
And finally I got mine stopped, and that mule passed us on the top side and went straight down to the Rio Grande Reservoir.
No kidding.
Just losing everything on the way down.
So is it one of the horses that I have at my house right now?
No,
riding?
No, okay. That wasn't one of those. Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah. The horse didn't make it. The horse didn't make it down. I had my horse stepped off and then was able to jump back on, but I grabbed a tree, and I've got a scratch on my side where I pulled myself out of the saddle. And oh man, we had 2 guys from Oklahoma with us.
Yeah.
And so I had to walk down to the bottom and pack this mule up by myself and try to drag him back up this cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like 2 miles in.
No kidding. Wow.
That mule,
just getting started.
He wouldn't get 2 feet away from my horse after that. They were buddied up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty funny. So, well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, you bet.
Any final thoughts or final words?
Man, I could sit here and talk all day, but I guess the thoughts that I would probably have would be, and it relates to business and partnerships, but is and I've been thinking about this a lot here lately, actually, but don't try to do stuff alone. If you're going to try to get into something or whatever, to, do your research, but find somebody that's already kind of been there to help get you started. There's a lot of things that I've tried to do in my life that I've tried to do on my own. I've always been one of those guys that I can do this kind of guy. I've always been confident, but I feel like I'm a humble guy. I try to be humble, but I want to, there's a lot of times I step out there and I say, I'm going to do this and not seek any help. And it's kind of turned around and bit me, and so whether it be with your spouse or partnership or and I'm not necessarily saying that you have to have a partner. I'm just saying find somebody to help look from the outside and get a different view of things than what you're looking at by yourself, to be able to navigate your business or finances like that you guys do, or because there's a lot of times I get tunnel vision, and Michelle's like my wife, she'll be like, probably don't need to do that, because we'll finally talk about it, and she'll have a different perspective, and I'm like, oh yeah, after I argue with her, I'm like, oh yeah, you're probably right.
No, it's good. Yeah, there's a great quote that came to mind. I don't know if you ever heard it. It's if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah, absolutely. And a good friend of mine, which I don't know, his name's Casey Mock. He says that all the time, but that's what Gary Keller, tells him. Casey, he was a great friend of mine and like a brother, and he had started, the land division for Keller Williams, and so that's what Gary always tells his guys. Yeah, is that exact quote.
Yeah. See, I want to find out who said it. I know Pastor Lee told me one time, the third time you quote it, you can claim it as your own.
Right. Okay. So. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I mean, you've just got a great growing business, wonderful family, and I can attest. I mean, you are a person of integrity. I know you've represented us on some land deals, and I really appreciate your friendship and seeing how God's blessed your family and your business.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. It's been an honor. I've enjoyed this. Same here. I just love your family to death. And I love the podcast. I've listened to every episode that you've done so far, and had a lot of windshield time. And so that's what I do when I'm in the truck. And so I appreciate you and honored that you've asked me to be on here.
Yeah. Yeah. That was quite the compliment. That really honored me when you said you'd already watched them. So
yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you guys joining us today. If you like this podcast, please click like and subscribe and share with all your friends.